This is She Fascinates Me, a podcast about women who are living with intention, curiosity, and heart. I'm Julie Silber, and in each episode, I'm bringing you conversations with women who inspire fascination in all its forms. Before we jump in, I wanted to share two quick notes. Today's conversation does include discussion around the loss of a spouse. It is a beautiful and meaningful episode, but it does touch on grief and some heavier moments. So I just wanted to give you a heads up to make sure that you're in the right headspace as you watch or listen. And additionally, there are a couple of audio feedback issues in parts of this conversation. Nothing that's going to keep you from understanding the conversation, but I wanted to apologize in advance. Today I'm talking with Amy Goldstein about losing her husband to ALS. And what surprised me most is what she shares about the bright spots and the fierce friends who carried her through it. This one will stay with you. Hello, and welcome to She Fascinates Me. I'm your host, Julie Silber, and today I'm talking with a family member, my husband Justin's cousin, Jason Goldstein's wife. So hello, Amy.
Hello.
Hi, it's so nice to see you. Thank you for coming on the show.
I'm grateful for you asking.
It's going to be a very special conversation because you're going to demystify and I think provide a lot of comfort and hope for anyone who might be navigating a road that you are 1 year into as far as grief goes. You have become a young widow, and that is what our conversation is going to kind of circle around today. So thank you for being so brave to come on and share some of your story with us.
A lot happens in a year, and it's crazy to be coming out the other side, and I'm happy to talk about it because it has been a journey, and I've been thinking a lot about it, but sometimes it's nice to just have a way to look back at that in another way. So thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you for being open to it. It was interesting to kind of be on the outside looking in. We live far apart from each other. We're in Atlanta, you're in Houston. And when the awful news came to our family that your husband Jason had ALS, we kept tabs, but we didn't see a lot of each other. And I was absolutely in awe of your entire family's grace through that ordeal. And being a woman who hasn't experienced a lot of loss in my own life, it's something that I have a lot of fear around. And fear and curiosity and fascination. And you are so open and honest and such a great communicator. And I just feel really blessed that you are willing to share some of your experience. So maybe you can explain kind of the basics of what went down.
Well, it's funny. I hadn't really experienced loss at all either. I mean, I grew up, my family was from all over the place, and we grew up separate in New Hampshire. So I felt like a little island and was sort of protected from all that myself. But, Jason and I met when we were kids, and he's been a part of my life, my whole life. But fast forward, into a married adult life, things were just moving along swimmingly. Our kids were growing up and, knee deep in baseball and knee deep in all kinds of activities. And then out of left field, we get the diagnosis that he has ALS. And that's a really hard one. I mean, I had heard of the Icebox Challenge. I had heard the name ALS, but I really had no idea what it was. And, our doctor's first instinct was to tell us, don't look it up on the internet because everything you read will scare you. And so we didn't for a while. We didn't look it up, but of course, you get information, just hearing things on the wind. And then of course you start looking things up, and it is, that's a really sad, awful, heartbreaking disease. And so, we walked that walk for about 3.5 years from the time he was diagnosed until he passed last February.
Yes, and so you're coming up on the 1 year anniversary, and it's just so multifaceted, the experience and navigating motherhood and caregiving and the day-to-day of just life. It's pretty incredible how strong you had to be and how all of the support came in around you. We're going to talk about that a lot too.
The first year is I hadn't actually heard about it, but a year of firsts is kind of a typical and difficult period for anyone who has had a major loss, because you're going through your first birthday without that person, or their first birthday without them being there, or the first holidays with an empty seat at the Thanksgiving table, or all of those things. But um, I'm a little grateful to be coming to the end of the year of firsts, and stepping into a new year.
Yeah. Does it feel a bit like about to reach the finish line of a marathon that's not really going to end, but is an interesting milestone?
I actually feel like, and I think I'll talk about this a lot, I actually feel so much more positive than I thought I'd be at the end of a year of first. But when you're going through the year, every time you start to feel good and strong, and then you have, another holiday or another remembrance, that's hard. So I'm looking forward to embracing the positive and not having sort of that constant new reminder that he's not here anymore.
You were saying the other day when we were talking on the phone, just using the word we a lot is something that is still so attached. Yeah.
I think every widow has a different relationship with that loss. And I know a lot of women who took their wedding ring off the day that their spouse passed, or at the funeral they took their wedding ring off. I still wear mine. And I still very much feel married, and I still feel in a weird way like I'm co-parenting, because I've had to learn to become the counterpoint that he always was. Like, I'm having to become both the firm parent and the soft parent. It's a tricky balance to try and become both parents and absorb both parenting styles, for sure.
I mean, talk about expansion, right? I mean, the whole experience for you, for all of you, emotionally and physically, with all of the demands of caregiving, there was a whole lot of expansion involved there. And so now, still, it's almost like maybe you were being trained for that, right? And so now here you are being both parents, and you've already got that expansion muscle.
It's funny, I think in most relationships, there you play different roles and you have different parts, and I knew that about a relationship. But I mean, Jason definitely was the soft spot to land, and he was the listener, and he just had a kind heart, especially for his kids, right? And I came from a family that relished efficiency and doing, and so I was the I don't know, I was the one pushing behind and making sure the train left on time, and all the more difficult, less fun, less soft pieces. And I think I continued to parent like that in the beginning, and it didn't work. You need the balance. The kids need the balance, and especially after losing their dad, they need this softness. And so they've actually taught me how to like step back in moments when I might have been like, let's just get it done, push through, you've got this. And now I just sit and I hug on them and I hold them, and I just listen a lot more. I think I'm a better listener now than I ever have been. And my kids taught me that out of necessity. Zoe in particular, my daughter, is a very soft, delicate person, and she's really good at voicing what she needs, and she's taught me to be more responsive to her needs. And I know it's been a really kind of a beautiful journey in my parenting. I can't say that I saw it coming, but I'm grateful that I've been able to evolve. And yeah, there's a lot of things that happen when you lose someone besides just the paperwork, and besides the, I don't know, restructuring of everything. There's a lot of emotional work that has to happen, that you don't anticipate. Those are the softer things that happen inside the home and behind closed doors. And
Well, and on the one hand, having to be so incredibly strong, and on the other hand, having to be open and vulnerable to allow those kinds of changes to happen. It's what a dance.
Yeah, I think I've learned that being strong isn't always being strong. Being strong can be being vulnerable, especially for your kids when they need that. Yeah, I mean, I've learned so much from them through this journey, and they've been incredibly resilient. I mean, this has not been an easy year for them, for sure, and they've responded very differently. I mean, my son is typical boy. I'm good. I'm all right. Power through. But he has, when he needs to, he can communicate really effectively. And Zoe has needed a lot, and has been really willing to do the work and to tell me when I'm not supporting her in the right way. And that was hard to hear in the beginning, but now, I don't know. Now I just feel like our relationship is better than it's ever been because we're supporting each other in so many new and, um, I don't know. She's kind of my new sidekick. We're together 24/7, and we're learning how to do that dance.
When you and I were talking about how we could have this conversation in a way that felt safe and comfortable for you, um, you talked about the bright spots when you were going through the most difficult parts of the ALS journey and through the grief process. And now that you're parenting on your own, even though Jason is there on your shoulder in the background, always that voice for you. Bright spots like that, where you're talking about your kids teaching you things. I would imagine you're still seeing a lot of bright spots, but in different kinds of ways to help you through as tools for the next part of your life.
Totally. And honestly, I mean, we have such a close family. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law are so available to help and be present when I need them to be. And my mom's here, and she's like a well, she's tough like I used to be, but she's also very present and available to them. And we do have a great network, but it is I don't know. It's been a really special time for the three of us to. I mean, we really are closer than we ever have been. And actually, I think over the course of our relationship, Jason had that sweet closeness with them. And I'm enjoying a little more of that, not because of because he's not here, but because I have learned to become a little bit more like him. I mean, we were an incredibly close family. COVID was amazing. We loved being together 24/7. We really enjoyed being around each other. But it was like we called each other the 4-pack, right? Like it was based on the four of us. So when you remove one of the table legs, like what happens to the table, right? And so it was really kind of a beautiful revelation for me that we would still be as close in a new way. And I'm not surprised by it, but there's so much change. I think a lot of kids in the situation might be angry or might, place blame, for whatever reason. And we didn't have any of that. We just really continued to lean on each other and love each other. And I don't know. Yeah. It's just been really a beautiful year in that way.
So like these emotional bonuses, I would put them in the category of a bright spot, for this first year of all of the firsts. But going back to the bright spots when you were going through the progression of all of the losses that you've explained that ALS is, if you can explain to me, were you aware ahead of time, okay, I got to brace myself, here we are, I got to brace myself and I got to be mindful that there might be bright spots along the way? Or was there a moment where you were in despair and you were surprised by your first bright spot? Maybe explain how that came to be.
I think my first bright spot came fairly early. And I think when we got the diagnosis, obviously there's the diagnosis of ALS, which was just terrifying, but also my husband is a typical guy. Like he would get a cold and he would, just the world would be ending and it would be so awful. And I was like, how is this going to go? Right? How is this going to be if he can't get through a common cold without like a big trauma, right? But once the diagnosis happened, Jason kind of jumped in and became his best advocate and became an incredible researcher. And I kind of saw really early on that he was up for the fight. He never was woe is me. He was never complaining. I mean, there was a lot of discomfort and a lot of relearning things, and not once, I don't know, he just never really got down. I mean, it was hard, but he never, woe is me. We just never had that. And I think once I realized he was up for the fight, I was like, okay, let's go. And I couldn't, if he wasn't going to be sad, or, I mean, if he wasn't going to bellyache about it, then I certainly was not going to bellyache about it, you know? And I think once we kind of set the table there, then we just tried to live as normally as we could, as long as we could, you know, and then make adjustments when we had to. But his tenor really set the tone for the entire journey that we had, and it was incredible. He saved all his strength and you know, his ability to fight for this one battle, and he fought really well. He fought hard.
I'm sure you were presented with a reminder of your wedding vows in sickness and in health. Was there any kind of moment around that you want to talk about?
I mean, it's interesting. You know, we met when we were so young, and like every relationship, it was a roller coaster. I mean, I think we had an incredible marriage and an incredible friendship. But you know, in life, there's hard times and better times. And I remember one time we actually did go to couples therapy for a short period, and I was like trying to express to him the depth of my relationship or how committed I was, because we were just not connecting. But I was like, but I'm still here. And I think after I started caretaking, I realized this is what I was trying to tell you. Like, I've got your back, like 100%. I will always have your back. It was really hard. Caretaking is a 24/7 lonely, thankless, you know, job, but it didn't feel like a burden because we loved each other so much through it, you know. Yeah. And I think it would be so different to be taken care of, to have someone like caring for you that wasn't so emotionally invested in your well-being. I think that helped him a lot, but it also helped me like be able to be there for him and kind of absorb all the losses and all the changes, because there wasn't anything else I could do but show up and do the things that needed doing. I don't know. We were always a pretty good team, but we were a really good team in this moment.
I mean, did you have friends or family members who had been in any kind of situation remotely similar that were a resource to you to help you figure out how to caregive, or like how did you learn how to do it?
Yeah, ALS is one of those things where you've never heard of it until it's part of your life, and then you meet all kinds of people. But I never had anyone close, and the thing that I kept going back to, and it was actually a podcast about a woman whose husband had ALS, but it was less about the ALS and more about the caregiving. And I listened to it over and over and over. I mean, I've probably listened to it 50 times. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot about hope. I learned a lot about not letting moments slip through your finger. But I just needed to hear another perspective. That wasn't about the disease. It was about how living with the disease. And I think it's important to have other sides of this kind of journey out there, because it can be the thing that someone leans on. It was so important to me.
That's a beautiful thing about podcasts. It's the parasocial element. Have you heard that term before?
Yes.
I remember when I learned that word, I was so proud to have that word in my vocabulary and what that word means. I think it's so interesting, right? Because if you think about reality television or social media, or documentaries where you're going deep on a human interest story, you can find a way to relate. And so even though you didn't have someone close to you, or you didn't have a consultant helping you on caregiving, or you didn't have doctors teaching you how to do all these things necessarily when it came to the nitty gritty of the 24/7 caregiving, you found that support in the form of that podcast. And I think that's just a great piece of advice to share here. There's so much information out there. I'm glad you found it.
And it's worth sharing, like when
Yeah.
you find it, send it on to someone else because it might help them as much too. It's
You should give me the information about that caregiving podcast, and we'll put that in the show notes because that would be a good one for anyone to know about, especially too with so many of us who have aging parents, and
Totally.
we're all about to embark on some journeys where we can benefit from that.
And now we'll take a moment for the giving intermission. Don't fast forward, your karma is watching.
While our family is fortunate to live in Houston, home to one of the largest and most respected medical centers in the country, our ALS journey ultimately led us to Mass General Brigham in Boston. With a progressive disease like ALS, you're often encouraged to establish care close to home, knowing that one day travel may become too difficult. But when you find a team like that of Dr. Merritt Kuchowitz, you go willingly, because there you find expertise and hope in equal measure. Each trip to Boston felt less like a medical appointment and more like returning to trusted friends. Friends who care deeply and who also happen to be among the world's most knowledgeable ALS experts in the world. The warmth, compassion, and personal attention we received were extraordinary. And just as important, Dr. Kuchowitz stands at the forefront of ALS research, leading or advising many of the most promising clinical trials in the field. To be cared for by a team so committed to both patients and progress is an incredible gift. You simply cannot find more comprehensive care, mind, body, and spirit, than what this team provides. I truly believe they're helping move the world closer to answers for this devastating disease. And with our continued support, they will one day crack its code. If you'd like to support the ALS research at Mass General, go to giving.massgeneral.org. Thanks.
And you're such an incredibly industrious, hardworking woman. And you have mentioned that you have not been very good at accepting help historically. So were you resisting that for a while? And then at what point did it break and you were like, okay, I'm ready for help?
Well, I think the beauty of a situation like this is, I think aside from early landmarks like getting married or, graduating or, things that happen early in your life, you don't really have episodes that make you take stock of your life and really necessarily fully embrace the community that you have. And I'm so blessed and amazed at the circle that we've created in Houston. And I really honestly didn't fully realize it until this happened. But of course, when you're someone who doesn't want to accept help and the help is coming like literally like being offered so generously and so often, it was actually kind of overwhelming to me. And so I had 3 friends who were literally my everything through this. They kept me upright and knew what I needed better than I knew myself. And they kind of gatekept a little bit because I didn't want people to feel like I wasn't grateful and I wasn't seeing their generosity. But I also didn't have the bandwidth to navigate all the emails and texts and all that sometimes. So I was very lucky to have people in my life that helped me manage that and help me accept. I accepted their help and they helped me accept other people's help when it was appropriate.
Let's talk about that. So these 3 friends, were they already your core group of 3 closest friends?
So COVID, I think, set me up for this whole situation. I mean, talk about silver linings. You think about how dreadful and dire COVID was, but I actually ended up on a group from school that was talking about health and wellness. I was friends with these women. I actually, one had been my tennis partner for like 10 years. I knew her well, but we didn't hang out a ton outside of tennis. And, another one, our kids overlapped in the same grade and our boys were friends, but, and we were friendly, but, you're just so busy and you don't necessarily make time for everyone in your life. And then one was a fairly new friend So Amy was my tennis partner. Liz had a son in Ethan's grade, and then Betsy, I knew of, and but I didn't know her well. And then we all ended up on this health and wellness committee together. And we just sat out on the back porch of Liz's house all through COVID, just solving the world's problems. And there were a couple other women in the group too, but the four of us in particular just stayed connected. And we're all different. Our kids are in different grades. We have boys and girls, and like it was like one of those moments where it was based on our own relationship, not on our relationship of our kids, or it was truly just we found each other. And so when Jason was diagnosed, they just kind of swooped in and really, they were everything. They were calling and texting and showing up and bringing coffee and making sure Jason was okay, and just a constant presence. So I knew I wasn't alone. Yeah. Because I think when you switch to that caregiving mode, and there's so many doctor's appointments, and you really don't have time to socialize the way you used to, you can get lonely or lost. Yeah, I think it's really easy to become invisible when you're caretaking, and they just didn't let it happen. They were thoughtful and not overstepping. Not that they could have, but I just think I didn't know I needed someone to be constantly present, but I did. And they felt it and took it upon themselves in the most beautiful and nuanced way. Relationships like these that teach you about the friend you want to be. And yes. I've learned so much from these three women, from my whole circle, but particularly these three women.
Yes. Well, one of the big takeaways that I would love to come from this conversation is to inspire men and women who are watching how they can help a family in a situation like yours. Because I think it's so natural for people to just say, I'm here for you if you need me, or let me know what I can do to help. But those concrete actions, and then especially when there's the challenge of someone like you, my dear, who doesn't like to get a lot of help, and you mentioned they helped you in a nuanced way, that's probably because they knew they had to do a little bit of a dance to get you to submit.
Yes. I mean, I've always been that person, like, oh, can I bring you dinner? And that is so sweet and so thoughtful, and it is helpful sometimes. But I've learned there's other ways to be helpful too. And I don't know that I would have really understood that if I hadn't been through it. It's not out of lack of interest or sincerity. It's just, it's hard to insert yourself into someone else's life, especially when they're going through something that is challenging and delicate.
Now that you're on the other side of it, looking in, are you learning more about the logistics that were involved that you might be able to share here so people can kind of learn how that system worked with these women?
It's really interesting. Actually, Liz just went through a health challenge and had a major surgery in the middle of the freeze a couple of weeks ago. And we put together what would have been a food train in any other situation, but we actually set up just a sign up. You pick a day, and that's your day to be responsible. And you just call and say, what do you need? Do you need a coffee? Do you need to sit and talk? Do you need to be left alone? Do your kids need anything? Like, do you need a ride to a doctor's appointment? Like, and I just thought that was so beautiful, because I think it's really hard to know what is needed. But this particular sign up just gave permission to say, what do you need today? Today's my day. I've got you.
Love that so much, because I think the meal train is great, and it's organized, and it does allow people to put in, dietary sensitivities or restrictions or preferences if they want to eat a little healthy and all of that. And there can be variety in that sense. But this is next level. And this is just, one person, one day, what do you need? And then that person can just be malleable and able to deliver whatever they need. And I think that is such a very, very good piece of advice. I can't wait to try that myself now. I'm going to make that suggestion.
It was
I hear of
brilliant. And
needing
it's kind of funny because, you get together a beautiful dinner with a salad and a lasagna and, like a dessert, and nobody eats like that every day, but you get that every day. But you're running around getting all these pieces, parts, and that's not really what they need. What they need is like a cup of coffee and a 30-minute chat. And that's just so much more genuine and achievable on both ends, right? Like, you don't have to run around trying to come up with a perfect, 3-course meal, but you've given them the real nourishment that they need, which is companionship, or, a moment to lean on someone's shoulder, or just knowing someone has your back at that particular day and that moment in time. So yeah, it's great. I highly recommend it.
Okay. I think it's really smart. You and I talked about therapy. I asked you if at any point you sought out therapy for when things were really getting tough for you. And you mentioned how your friends were helpful in that regard first. So talk about that.
I have a difficult relationship with therapy. My first experience with therapy was pretty negative, and I was not very open to the idea of it. And I have actually evolved and become much more open to it, and have had successful therapy over time. But when I was caretaking, everyone's like, you need a therapist, you need to go to therapy. And when I tell you, I did not have time to have a real meal. I didn't have time to get a decent night's sleep. Like, I did not know how I was going to leave Jason, leave the house, get him covered, to go talk about myself for an hour. Like, it didn't seem like the priority in that moment. But I needed it, right? Like, you need to verbalize things and you need to work things out. That I think with ALS, you have a lot of time to think. I mean, for 3.5 years, I was thinking through what life would be like, next week, next month, after, So my girlfriends just intuitively knew when I was like at a breaking point, when I just needed some fresh air. So they would swing by, they would make sure one of the kids was home and could cover me for an hour or two, and we would like walk and talk, and that was my therapy. And I talk about bright lights when I think of the 3.5 years, but especially the last year and a half. Like, that's all I remember, except caretaking, like, was my walking and talking. And it was so therapeutic, mind, body, soul. Like, I was with the people that I needed to be with. I was outside, getting a little sun in my face, and I was talking through the hard things, and having people who cared about me and cared about Jason and my kids, listening and really giving honest feedback. And it was all coming from a place that, they knew me. They knew me really well. So it was all really good. I can't imagine getting better advice from a therapist, honestly.
Okay.
It was all,
yeah, that was what worked for you. I have a question for you. Were there times when you were going through the long-term, the 3.5-year illness and all of the caretaking, where you had good days or actually felt okay? Because I have heard other women talk about that who are going through something incredibly difficult. And I wonder if that was ever the case for you, or if it was just too complicated and time consuming with caretaking for you to have any good days.
I kind of liken it to parenting a new child, right? Like, you're trying to figure out this moment and what they need, and like, you figure it out and you're like, oh, we've got this. And then something else changes. So like, there were a lot of periods where we were in a good rhythm and I knew how to make them comfortable. And there were definitely a lot of plateaus that we could kind of enjoy. But then, then the shoe would always, something else would come along, and then we'd have to recalibrate. And in the beginning, those plateaus were longer. I mean, toward the end, they got shorter, and the losses were closer together. I think the plateaus were actually kind of a special time because we talked a lot. Like, Jason and I had 3.5 years, and actually probably 5 years if you include COVID, because COVID was right before his diagnosis. We had 5 years of being together almost all the time. We got to talk about all kinds of things, like our hopes for each other, our hopes for the kids. He didn't really want to talk about anything surrounding death at all. But we just got to have a lot of deep conversations and like a lot of time together that I think people in this stage of their life, they just don't, you just don't have that much dedicated time to your spouse.
Yes.
And it was kind of amazing.
There was a lot of intention around because you knew that you had to squeeze every last drop out of those plateau moments, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I think just when you end up spending so much time together, your conversations can be deeper, and especially when you're able to have them consecutively. You might have a great vacation conversation, and then you go back to life, and it gets busy. We had years of this, and
that's amazing.
We also watched a lot of movies, a lot of Netflix, a lot. It wasn't all deep conversation, but
right.
Yeah, there was a lot of good time in there.
I have a question jumping forward to this past year. Have you had times when you felt like you were actually okay?
I feel remarkably okay. And, I think about that a lot. And it's kind of a hard thing to say. I think when you're going through something hard that is wrapped in grief and sorrow, people expect you to be not okay. But I think it's a couple of things. With ALS, you're grieving the whole time they're sick. So for 3.5 years, I was grieving the losses. So it didn't all come at once. And that really came to my attention the same week Jason passed away. We had a neighbor who is almost exactly the same age and went to bed with a little cold and had sepsis overnight and passed away. And I remember thinking, wow. I remember thinking two things. Wow, Jason would have liked to have gone overnight. Like what he went through for 3.5 years was brutal. And like to go overnight is a little bit of a blessing for the person who's sick. That sounds weird. But for the family, we had the ability to get used to the idea over years. And this wife and this child woke up without a husband and without a father overnight. And so it was happening all at once. It's hard, right? But we got to say all the things that we wanted to say. Mm-hmm. And we got to, our favorite conversation was like, oh, if we win the lottery, what are we going to do? We got to have like the more down to earth version is like, what do you want for your kids? Like, what are your hopes for our family? Like, we got to have those conversations, and I kept thinking, this other widow just woke up without a spouse. The flip side of it is I just miss having, it's like the other half of your brain, like all of these things I'm going through. I just want to talk to Jason about it. I'm like, I want to talk to him about the taxes. I want to talk to him about, our daughter's had some mental health struggles, and I want to talk to him about that. Mm-hmm. And those are the moments where I feel really alone, not in a way that I truly feel alone because I am so well supported by family and by friends. I'm having to learn not to second guess myself. Because I think when I would second guess myself, I would get reassurance from Jason, and I'm having to get that from myself. That's kind of the biggest adjustment. But on the whole, if my kids are okay, if the family is okay, then I'm actually pretty good. I mean, I don't know. There's so much unknown right now, like in life and what the future holds for our kids and for me. And people are like, what's your end game? What are you going to do once I graduate high school? I have no idea. I'm trying to figure out if I'm okay being a solo traveler. I'm, learning all these new skills, but it's actually gone a lot better than I would have expected. And I feel I feel grateful that he worked so hard that I have the gift of being able to stay home and like figure it out for a while. And, while Zoe is still in school, we get to stay in our house, and that's really important to Zoe. I feel like I have a lot to be grateful for.
Absolutely.
I miss him. It would be better if he were here.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, we're just keeping on.
And so you touched on, you're trying to get comfortable with the idea of maybe being a solo traveler, and let's talk about what that part of not being in a couple anymore has been like for you as a young widow. I mean, we're the same age. I don't know if you want to discuss our age, but here you are in midlife, a heck of a lot earlier than other women who find themselves without a spouse.
It is weird. I think it doesn't really sink in until I have to fill out a form, and it's like married, single, divorced, widow. That always literally stops me in my tracks. When I was going through the process, or when Jason was ill, so many people tried to set me up with friends who widow friends. And I'm like, thank you, no thank you.
Okay.
I just wasn't ready for it. And I just thought it was a little weird that there are all these circles of widows running around. And now I totally get it. Especially when you become a widow at a younger age. It kind of puts you in a little bit of a strange social place. I mean, I certainly have girls' nights out and, go out with my girlfriends. The whole couples scene is you're not really a part of that anymore. So like this whole segment of your social life kind of goes away, and it's not intentional, and it's not hurtful. But it is, you kind of have to recalibrate and kind of find the places that make sense. And I actually did go to dinner with a couple friends, I don't know, this fall. And it felt so nice. I was so grateful to be there, like hanging out with the guys,
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you that because to me, socially, I really enjoy the times that we have hanging out with other couples, and I would miss that a lot.
I am as good of friends with a lot of, the husbands as I am the wives. So
Yeah.
I think that is going to take some navigating. I will say this year has been busy. It has been busy. There's been a lot going on in our family, and we've had a lot of change, and there's just been a lot. So I haven't had as much time as I did prior to Jason being sick, so it hasn't been glaring. I haven't been like pining, waiting for the phone call, but I have noticed that I'm sort of in a new category now.
Yeah.
It's a little weird.
Okay. Lots and lots of
I get the Widows Club.
Extreme feelings. Certainly the most extreme feeling would have been the shock in the beginning. And then going through 3.5 years of such a huge challenge and so much sadness and so much loss, and then the actual loss. And then now this whole new life, a new identity. So those are all very, very big feelings. And then I'm wondering, has there been a moment yet in this first year where there's like a gigantic exhale, or no? Because I remember you were saying that there's still so much that has to be done in this first year, like all the paperwork and, things that have to be restructured and, just the administrative situation of losing a spouse. Have you had that exhale moment or not quite yet?
I feel like I'm just seeing the light now. I'm not out the other side of the to-do list. And a lot of it actually didn't have to do with Jason. I mean, I'm still dealing with probate and all that stuff, but a lot of it was just family circumstances. But it was a lot. I felt like I was running from one fire to the next fire, and I wasn't taking care of myself. And I feel like I do have a lot more time to breathe. I'm sleeping a lot more than I used to. I was never a good sleeper. Now I'm like, I revel in a good night's sleep. Yeah, it's incredible. I became a great sleeper.
Great.
Out of necessity when Jason was sick, because I needed it when I needed it. But yeah, I feel like we are getting through a lot of life stuff, a lot of adulting this year. And I think I might be able to walk and talk a little bit more coming up, and maybe play tennis a little more. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do with that time when it comes to me, because it's been a while since I've had it.
You know, I'm going to vote for tennis.
I'm a little rusty, but it'll be fun to get out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. My tennis girls were great. Like they all showed up at the memorial service.
Yeah.
So.
Been such an incredible conversation, getting to hear so much about your own personal strength and resilience, your family's bond that just was already there, but came together so beautifully to savor every bit of precious time that you had with Jason. And I'm just more amazed at all of you than ever. And I'm really glad that you were willing to have this conversation with me. I'd love to ask you, you know, if someone out here is listening and maybe they're about to be surprised with something that you had to go through, or maybe they're realizing they're in something and they're having to brace themselves and prepare for it. Is there like some big piece of advice that you want to share?
You know, I think there are definitely cycles and seasons to life, and some are beautiful and some are really hard. And I think if you pay attention even to the smaller variations in your life, usually a hard time is followed by something maybe bigger and more beautiful. And I can't say that I have bigger and more beautiful to look forward to right now, but I think, you know, after I've had miscarriages, I've had hard times in my life that seemed impossible, but then you end up having the child you're supposed to have. Or, you know, when you're going through a hard time in your relationship and you feel like it's broken and it won't get better, and then you find a way through it and you appreciate each other in a better way, it becomes more beautiful. I just think looking at any moment in time, especially the hard ones, in a vacuum can really it can really destroy you if you let it. But I think if you look at the cycles and if you look at the highs and the lows, and you really know that the highs are going to come, even if you're in the middle of a low, that helps you get through the tough days. And yeah, I think there's a lot of beauty to be found in even the hard times. And I don't know. I think life is incredible, and it's there to be enjoyed. So sitting in the sorrow it's hard. It's hard to get out of those places, but if you can get out, like, it's worth feeling the sunshine on your face one more time, and walking into the new stage, being grateful for all the things that you've experienced. I do think that if you pay attention, life prepares you for the hard times. And I am grateful for what I have today, and I will miss Jason for the rest of my life. But I love my life.
Yeah.
So
You're incredible.
I love you, Julie. I'm so grateful.
Really proud of you. And like I said earlier, I'm afraid, you know, of what all of that's like. One day we all have to go through it, but I'll always think about you and how strong you are, and you'll give me so much strength one day when I'm faced with something.
I will be calling. I'll be sending you a random text message right when you need it. We're all strong. We're all stronger than we know. I think what I learned more than anything going through this whole experience was that there are always silver linings, and you just have to look for them. I mean, because they're there.
Yeah.
Always.
And you hear about them a lot, right? And it seems like a cliche, but it's absolutely real. And I'm so glad that, you know, we had this time in our conversation to talk primarily about those silver linings. You know, unfortunately, like I wish we had, but I guess distance and schedules and all of that, there's just not been a lot of actual face-to-face closeness. And, you know, a lot of that stuff is private. And so it was, right. I really wanted to be able to share with everyone all those beautiful moments that that seem to have gotten you through and strengthened your family even more than it was before. We've always admired the closeness of your family that we've observed over the years, and it's just what a beautiful thing that you all went through together, and we're really proud of all of you. Mm-hmm. So thanks for sharing everything.
I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful because I think you don't hear about this side of disease and loss. You just don't. And I think it's important to know that, it's all bad, but it's not all bad.
Yeah, I mean, what you went through was,
I hope this helps somebody.
So difficult, so incredibly cruel for Jason to have to go through, and so long. And you have proven, yes, you can, more than just saying, yes, you can get through it. You can get through it as a family, and here's how, and here's why. And it was just amazing to hear you explain all of that. And the friend piece too is just so huge. I think in a day and age where we're all, I feel like exponentially every year I get busier and busier and busier, but we've all got to make sure that we keep these friendship connections going, so that we can literally lean on people when we need them. And your trio of friends, Liz, Amy, Betsy, thank you for helping Amy. What an amazing crew.
They're my chosen family. Yep.
Yeah. I'd like to meet them one day,
family,
maybe.
And then you have your chosen family, and come on over anytime.
Yeah. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
All right, my dear. Well, I'll be in touch with you soon.
Well, thank you.
And thanks for your time today.
I would love it.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. This was amazing.
Amy, thank you so much for this. You shared something so honest about grief, about identity, and about learning how to exist in a world that suddenly feels different. And I'm walking away with two things I won't ever forget: that bright spots don't erase loss, but they can keep you going, and that real support isn't about checking boxes, it's about staying present. I'm so grateful that you trusted me with your story, and I hope that everyone listening takes something from this for themselves, and so they can be that friend for someone else. I'm glad you're still here, and the fact that you are, watching or listening all the way to the end, means you gave me a chance. This is a new podcast, and it was a big leap to create this for you, something real, thoughtful, and meaningful. We live in one of the most networked societies in history, but somehow we've become the least connected. That's the magic of She Fascinates Me, bringing together real women, real stories, and the quiet alchemy of change. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow or subscribe wherever you watch or listen, and take a moment to leave a quick rating or review. It really helps more people find the show, and it makes it possible for me to keep bringing you conversations like this one. And connect with me on social at She Fascinates Me. Every follow, share, and kind word helps this community of fascinating women grow. I'm so glad we're connected now.